Hello, and welcome to the So Emotional podcast. Here on the cast, we discuss everything emotions through the lens of attachment, the nervous system, and internal parts work. We're a little irreverent and like to have fun exploring the emotional issues and dynamics that interest us. So come along and hang out. Let's explore the fascinating lands of emotions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to So Emotional podcast. This is where we remove the stigma and enigma around emotions and the emotional journey. Because it's really helpful. A lot of us are out there in the weeds and it can be really gnarly. I am your host, Angela Wetzel. I'm a trauma-informed relationship coach. This is also your host, Nick Carl, somatic coach. And we have a very special guest with us today, Karla McLaren. Actually, I didn't ask if I said your name right. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Karla, so we're actually geeking out about Karla because we both stumbled onto her book and I was like, we have to have Karla on the podcast just because I love your perspective. I love.
Thank you.
I'll go into it, but I'm going to read your bio and then I'll say more before I get overly excited. Okay, Karla McLaren is an award-winning author, educator, workplace consultant, and social science researcher. Her work revalues even the most negative emotions. I used air quotes for those of you that are listening on Spotify, and opens startling new pathways into self-awareness, effective communication, and healthy empathy. She is the founder and CEO of Emotion Dynamics Incorporated. She is also the author of many books, including The Language of Emotions, The Power of Emotions at Work, and Embracing Anxiety. And she is the developer of the online learning site, empathyacademy.org. So beyond excited to have you here for so many reasons. Where do I even start? We're like, you probably have a large fan club that maybe you don't know about. That's my guess, but we're a part of it. We're a part of your
secret fan club. They don't even tell me.
Well, right. Well, we need to follow you on Instagram and just we need to create a fan club because I think the thing is when it comes to emotions have really bad PR and it's not like any fault of their own. They're just very largely misunderstood. And so when I came across your book, I just felt like you put language to and were expressing so many things that I've learned on my own emotional journey. And I just felt like I was listening to the gospel of emotions. And I was like, hallelujah. So just having the audible version where it's got those little hymns in there, it's some kind of beautiful soulful music. I was like, this is like emotions church that we're having here. And it's so important. And one of the things that really caught my eye was what you had written about initiation. And the name of my coaching company is Epic Initiator. And I've had many crazy life initiations. So that was a fascinating perspective that really caused me to lean in and say, I really feel like Karla is speaking about something unique in a unique way. And that's what I was really fascinated by because I don't want to speak for you, Nick, but what I will say is I've read so many books. I've done so many programs. I've done so many things over the years. And I feel like sometimes I'm reading a lot of the same ideas, just repackaged in different ways. So I'm not necessarily, and I don't want, this is not me talking shit on all of the pioneers and founders of, different things, because I think everyone has a place. But I will say after reading your book, there were many points where I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever heard this concept or idea actually expressed in this kind of way. And it just caused me to kind of perk up and go, wow, this is such a fascinating idea. And so really that's why we wanted to have you on, but I'll let Nick say a few things.
Anyway, Karla, thank you for coming on. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and kind of get maybe some trajectory on, or it was just something that I heard, I've experienced it, and this is the idea of coming back into my body, into my own experience after a lifetime of rejection, emotional rejection, and I just called it disassociation. I was so heady and so in dreamland So I worked with somebody who did somatic experiencing, which was just like getting back into my body. And it became like, I'm a nerd, so I read all the books first, and I'm just like, let's get to it. And in that first time, there was I was like I stumbled across a giant ocean of emotion that lived in my body. And since that time, things didn't necessarily get easier. And you mentioned that in the book. It's like, once you have come back out of disassociation, things have actually gotten quite a bit harder. And I was just wondering if you could kind of speak to that process of you're inside of all this protection. And as you put the pieces together, like sometimes it gets a little more tough.
I think as a person who was dissociated for a couple of decades, once you come back, all of your emotions that you've been avoiding, well, they didn't go anywhere.
Right.
Okay. They still have things to say. And so learning the language of emotions can really help, especially as you're re-embodying yourself, because if you have that language, then you can begin to hear. I think of coming back after dissociation as the tornado or the hurricane have gone through the town, and now you're going to your house and the furniture is everywhere and your books are wet, but the tornado is gone, right? So it's just the aftermath. And I think that can be very helpful, because part of being dissociated in that way is that hurricane's coming back. I know it is. But once you settle in, you're like, okay, that one's gone. And now I've got to pick up all this furniture, right? But if you don't have a language for your emotions or a way to contact them, it can just feel like a unreasonable mess that no one could ever.
Right.
No one could ever do this.
Right.
So yeah. So for me, when I came back in my body, there was a lot. My emotions had a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot to say, and they should have, because they were left alone.
Yeah.
They were left alone to handle stuff in my pretty unsafe life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You talk a little bit about this in your book. I think in your books, more about your history, and like something that we like to talk about here on the podcast is just like some of your initiations into how you were like, holy shit, there's like things I need to pay attention to here. Like emotions are important, or there's something, maybe there was something like the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe it was one big thing, or maybe it was a series of circumstances or incidents. Would you like share more a little bit about that? Like, what was that in your experience?
Like, how did I start to understand or work with the emotions?
Well, I remember listening in your book, it was like you mentioned really having a unique companionship with animals, and you could kind of tell that like animals would tell the truth, but people weren't always as reliable. So to me, it says that there was a part of you early on that was paying attention already. And I think that's unique. But I'm wondering, because like I almost feel like, and I don't know if this is your experience, but this is what I felt like, because I remember being like 6 or 7 years old and actually watching my attachment behaviors, which I think is like, now looking back, I'm like, isn't that kind of unusual that I was watching my own reactions and wondering why I was doing that? And then later on in life, I kind of forgot that I did that. And it wasn't until, gosh, when I was like getting a divorce and it just felt like my life was crashing down around me, that I was like, something's really wrong. Like I have no self-esteem. Like, how did I create this mess? Like, how did I wind up here? How did I, opt into this kind of relationship? It was something like that for me. And I'm just kind of wondering if you have something like that.
I'm not sure if I have a specific moment. I think it happened over long stretches of time. Understanding one emotion and thinking, okay, I'm done with emotions now. I understand emotions now. And then it's like, oh, suicide. Okay. Oh, hatred. Yeah. So it's like, and even today, like with the language of emotions, which I just updated, I've learned so much since 2010. I've learned so much. And I had the emotions pretty good, but there were some clunkers in there. Okay, there were some clunkers where I didn't understand the emotion as well as I might have. And so it feels so good to be able to make these changes and
Yeah.
continually go, oh, you were wrong.
Mm.
Why don't you go fix that?
Yeah. What which ones do you feel like were like the biggest clunkers to you where you were like, oh gosh?
Oh my gosh, confusion and apathy. I wrote about them pretty well, but with both of them, I wanted you to get out of them. Like
Mm.
I didn't see their value. And with confusion, I had two questions. All of the emotions have questions that help you enter into the work that emotion is trying to do. And I think my original questions for confusion were like, basically the questions are like, why are you confused? Now stop it. That was not a good question. And my questions now are, oh, that's what they were. It was, what is my intention and what action should be taken, right? So finding your intention, if you're confused, why would you even know what your intention were? There's a question. There's a shitty question. And then what action must be taken is the question for fear. So I was trying to get people out of confusion and into fear. I'm like, let's go. And so now the questions are, how can I welcome not knowing and not doing?
Oh wow, that's really
Which is
juicy.
the whole purpose of confusion.
Right.
You need to not know, right? You need to stop being such a smarty pants and stop doing things. Just stop. And who wants to hear that?
Right?
Yeah, who wants to hear that from their emotions? I'm like, no, you cannot tell me. You're not the boss of me.
It's like the entire opposite like paradigm of our entire culture, which is like figure it out, like pin it to the ground, destroy it, like move on.
Don't ever not know.
Don't ever not know, and don't ever sit still. Just
And if you don't know, just do a bunch of random shit, just like pick a direction and just beat it to death.
Don't stop for directions ever.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Because everyone's going to know that you don't know. So yeah, there were some emotions that I was, it's just shitty at understanding. So I'm so glad. Like I had a piece of it, but no.
So, Karla, one of the things that when I was introduced back into my body, I was so blown away that, and it felt like a new technology that I had found this realm, you know? And then as I did more research and did more reading, I started to think like, gosh, this stuff is so primary, right? All this internal landscape is so primary. It's so important. And I was like given zero, absolutely no direct, like,
Negative. You were given negative numbers of badness.
right. And so then I think about, I'm an adult now, I guess, adult, whatever. Here in this country, right? Just in our culture in general, and I like just shooting from the hip, I put like our knowledge level or ability to work with these things and like be adept with them at like a 2%, right? So it's like it's exceedingly low. I just wonder if you could kind of talk to the context of how important emotions are in our beings and in our lives, and then in general, like the knowledge basis that is existing in the polis, in the people.
It's really hard. One day on Facebook, I just said to everybody, I said, would you write down some emotion shaming messages that you've heard in your life? Right. And like Facebook was on fire. Right. I mean, so people are like, boom, 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 boom. Fear is the opposite of love. Never be angry. It was constant. The Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama takes a bat to emotions, that dude. And so it was just like, I think there were like 60 comments. And I thought, okay, cool. And then I waited a day because everyone was still riled up. And then on the third day, I said, okay, now, thank you so much. Now, tell me about some emotion welcoming messages that you've heard in your life. And there was nothing.
Crickets.
People couldn't even make a letter duh. So I put in like one. I said, what about anybody would be angry if they were being treated that way? What about that, right? And then there were some really, really pathetic attempts, but essentially I think I ended up with five comments on
Okay.
that. People had
Nothing.
they couldn't think of a thing that they'd ever been told about emotions that was welcoming to the emotions. And I think that's the problem that we all have. It's not that we're emotionally incompetent. It's that we don't even have a language for it.
Hmm.
And we haven't been welcomed. I mean, think about if I say, oh, she's so emotional. Is there any positive connotation to that at all?
No, we hate that person. Get her out.
We hate them. They shut up, you emotional person. Right? It's bizarre. It's
Right.
bizarre how much we've been taught to distrust and even despise emotions.
Hmm.
And in psychology and psychiatry, there are no courses on emotions. But these are the people we go to when we're having emotional trouble, and they literally do not know. So even the professionals in emotion don't know. So it's no surprise that how we experience our emotions is just like, what are these awful things? They're just a mess. Like,
Right.
Why would you want them? Yeah.
It's so interesting because it's like our culture has a very adversarial relationship with emotion. And like most of the time, I think people just feel victimized by their emotions. Like just, I don't know what to do. And these bad things are just haranguing me. And it's like, I can't stop it. And what's interesting to me is just kind of like, learning that children can't self-regulate. And so if we have all these parts inside of us that never really had anyone teaching us or modeling us for us how to take care of our emotions or turn towards them or listen, then it's like we've got a bunch of people in adult bodies running around with these inner children. And when we become like triggered or dysregulated, it's like those inner children, if we have no guidance, they are alone and we cannot self-regulate without getting that modeling.
Mm.
So it's just kind of like wild to think about people walking around. Like, how is anyone really surviving? You know what? Like it kind of like blows my mind to be like, okay, if people don't self-regulate and they feel heavily victimized by their emotions, and then they're feeling victimized by all these external circumstances because that is dictating their emotional landscape.
Yeah.
Then like what? But then you kind of look at, pretty much any trauma book and you're like, yeah, we've got some serious problems.
Yeah. It's like, have you met the human race? Have you seen us?
Right. Like it's kind of a giant mess in a way. And
Kind of a giant mess.
it's
Yeah.
an understatement.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important things to understand about emotions is that people blame the emotions for the situations the emotions came to address. So if a bunch of troubling stuff is going, people notice when there's trouble, there's always some damn emotions there.
Right.
So clearly you need to get rid of those emotions. And
Right.
in fact, when there's trouble, the emotions come forward to help you. And I work with a model of 17 emotions. Each one brings you a different skill. And so you want as many as you can get, right? It's like, I need more skills. But for most people, that movement of all the emotion toward, into consciousness just feels like they're being beat up on by a gang.
Mm-hmm.
A loud, bad gang.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the things in my work is like, welcome them. Okay, panic, let's go. Okay, hatred, let's do our shadow work. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. Okay, anger, let's go.
Yeah. There was this quote, and I feel like I'm going to mess it up, but you said something about initiation being like the wrong place and the wrong time and like happening via the wrong person. But it was like still.
Yeah, that's a quote from Michael Meade, the mythologist. And I was in a workshop of his, and he said that childhood, he was talking specifically about childhood sexual assault.
Mm.
He said it is an initiation by the wrong person with the wrong intention for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah.
But it's an initiation, nevertheless.
Right.
And then he talked about what are the stages of initiation. And, I was like, my husband Tino was there. I was like, Tino, what did he say? And I started writing it down. And then he got into the book. And I've shown it to Michael, and he's like, yep, that's what I said. But understanding the difference between a real initiation from an initiatory culture and the kinds of initiations that we have in trauma, in traumatic experiences, and that the initiation wakes up a part of you, right? But if you don't have the community around you, if you don't have the plan, like initiations are planned. Your bat mitzvah or your bar mitzvah, everybody knows when you're hitting 12 years old, you got to start studying, and it's terrifying. You get up and you read the Torah, and the whole community's there. Nobody's reading it for you. You have to do it yourself, right? But then you are an adult, right? You make that transition. And in trauma, the same kind of, but you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know. There's no context for it. However, it still is an initiation. And so taking that, I was able to really kind of go and see where I was still stuck and do the thing that needed to be done. The 3 stages of initiation are removal from the known world, 2 is the ordeal, and 3 is the witnessing and welcoming back, so that you're seen by a community of people who know what you've gone through, and now they say you are now the initiated person, right? In trauma, it's the first one is the known world goes away. The second is the ordeal, but there is no third. There's no third. There's nothing. Who witnesses you, right? And who sees you as an initiated person? Nobody. And what Michael says is that the rule in the psyche is that if the third stage doesn't happen, stages 1 and 2 have to repeat.
Right. So it's
So a lot of people think I've got PTSD, and I'm like, maybe you don't. Maybe you're in your 1, 2, and someone needs to witness you out. And so for me, it became really important with whatever trauma I went through to witness myself out so that I could be available to witness others. Like 3 lines, no waiting, right? Let's go. I'm in that tribe. I'm in that tribe too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by that, because it's interesting, like in culture, well, a lot of like our Western culture, like there is no planned initiation. Like there's no structure really, right? Not much.
We sort of do it with weddings.
Yeah, like it's like
weddings are like out of control.
Right.
I mean, weddings are there's nothing sacred about them at this point. It's mostly just money, right?
Like a commercial thing, but not as much as an initiation. But yeah, there's like certain maybe rites of passage. Like now you're 25 and you can rent a car, like without them looking at you sideways, it's like, where are the landmarks? But then
or you graduate from school or something like that. But we don't have any sacred in it. We don't have bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. I mean, there are in religions. There's confirmation and Catholicism and things like that, right? There's little pieces, but in terms of the mainstream American culture, no, I don't think there's much an understanding of initiation at all.
So, Karla, when I read The Language of Emotions, so I did the somatic work with now a friend of mine, a therapist in Arizona, and we worked together for about 4 years, and have since continued to work with a couple different therapists, but like I feel like I've kind of established a pattern, my particular pattern. I don't want to get down in the weeds, but it's like pretty good for a while, and then like I kind of get this, like I feel like I'm in the stream of life going with the river, but then I get stuck in like a side eddy, right? And then I can feel like I'll feel it in my body, all sorts of different things. And it usually what I have to do is like sit by myself and then kind of like just have all the stuff come back, right? And it's just like all the anger, all the rage, all the deep fear. There's shame stuff. I mean, it's a real melange of stuff that has to come. And then I sit with it because I don't really know what more to do with it, Uh, and I kind of birth it out, and then it sits back, and my energy like kind of like recedes back again, And I kind of like tried to sort of like divine something from the book about something I could do for myself. And I thought about initiation. I thought about this, and I've been witness through somatic experience, and like Angela's helped me too, of like, especially when I'm with somebody else, I get so much more access to all sorts of stuff that's happening inside of me because the amount of protections and everything that I built up when I'm alone, because that's when it was all established. But I mean, are there things? I just think about repeating stuff, right? And the idea of initiation and the way you describe it kind of made me think about that because I do have repeating things every few months, like this black cloud, but it comes from inside, whatever it is. This thing comes and it kind of gets a hold of me for a while until I just sit with it, and this gigantic amount of energy comes out. But I just seem to kind of be in this like circle of like continuing to do that. And like my brain is like, well, I guess I just do this forever now. What do you think about a pattern like that?
Well, what I was thinking is the poet David White talks about molting in birds.
Hmm.
That sometimes when it's time to make a change and you're going to be evolving into a new form, you become really ugly to yourself. If you've ever seen a molting bird, they're kind of horrifying to look at. But it's a process that they have to go through. And so you would never take a photo of a bird when they're molting and saying, look at this. So, it could be a molting process, but I think from somatic experiencing that, at least this is what I learned in somatic experiencing, was that if my panic kept coming up, it was because something was unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's something that I still needed to upload about the survival skills. My panic was still like, you need to figure this out. Right. So that if this ever happens again, we're going to have some super skills, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be that if panic or if anger and rage come up, they're both about boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so it would be doing boundary work.
Yeah.
Utilizing the energy of those emotions.
Right.
Yeah. So each emotion comes up for its own reasons. Sure. And it can also mean that you feel safe enough. Mm-hmm. I think this surprises people. Like, I'm doing so well. I just, I got a great job. Everything's fine in my life and my emotions have gone out of control. I'm like, oh, have they? Yeah. Really? It could be that you're stable and now your emotions are like, she's listening.
Right.
I have a lot to say.
We have a lot to say. Yeah.
I have so much to say.
Right.
And I really liked in the book how you kind of created the sacred space, when you check in with your, your sorrow and your fear. And I really liked the arm's length sort of bubble. It reminded me of some kind of like aura work and some energy work that I've, read about and learned about. But that bubble right away like made total sense to me. And I really liked feeling that bubble. And also feeling like this is mine. This belongs to me. This is my energy. This is my space. I just thought that was the bee's knees. I really liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was this concept in your book that I really loved that I would like to hear a little bit more about, the conscious complaining.
Yes.
Which is, it's so funny because like people are like, I don't want to complain. I just want to be positive. The universe is always listening. I don't want to piss it off. So I don't want to complain, but it's kind of like, I like what you said about it. Cause it's like, well, it's still there. It's kind of like, you can have a turd and put chocolate as a sign on it, but it's still like a turd, right? So it's like, can we just be honest? But,
there's a wonderful, is it Antonio Machado? says, your anger is a fine wine that God loves to drink. That is so
That's
cool.
a really good quote.
Dear God, drink it because I'm angry. When I was working with my rage, at first I would go outside because nobody could be anywhere near me. I was that angry. And I would just take God out in the backyard and kick the shit out of him. Right? I was like,
Yeah.
of course, God is a him. But I would be like, I could build a better world out of a fucking pumpkin. And God's like, bring it. Bring it. I think Robert Bly says, if you love God and you pray, you'll be able to meet him in 30 years tops. You say, but if you hate God, you'll meet him by about 2 p.m. this afternoon. So conscious complaining comes from that. But one of the things about complaining is we're all told not to do it, which means it's in the shadow. And if you know shadow work, the shadow is where all the power is, where the truth is, and where the gold is. So being welcomed to complain means that you're letting things out, right? Things that have been repressed and controlled, and telling it like it is. And I call it conscious complaining, but basically when you start, it's mostly because you just feel crappy and snappy, like, it's very quick though. And usually when I start conscious complaining with my crappiness, it will deepen into sadness and grief.
Yeah.
And shame, right? But I have to get there through anger. I have to get there through, I hate how this is. And, there's a lot of projection going out. And so anger sort of tells me something's going on. And if I can speak it or write it, I can get down to what's actually happening.
I've had it happen a couple times. The car is my safe place to do it. But like I start to scratch, and this is a form of conscious complaining. I was doing like parts things. So I had this idea of a part. And then I knew he wanted to say something. So I just kind of said something in his voice and it was like scratching this little thing. And then all of a sudden it took a little bit to kind of get going. Like the energy had to start flowing a little bit. And then boom, all this stuff came out. And I was just like ripping it and just screaming. And I was just like, holy shit. I was like, and I was learning things about this that I had no idea. And that's what I was like, whoa, that was cool. And as a practice, I didn't go back to it all the time. It's really when I'm really verklempt that I will go to that space, But when I read your book, I was like, oh, I've done this, And I tried to do it, so I go for a walk every day out here in the park. And I tried to, and I knew just because you got to get the energy going, but it was a little tough because I know what that feels like where you start at this level and you're going to move into something else, but sometimes it doesn't move or it won't kind of pop off. And I was okay with that, but I've just had that sensation. And you saying that it starts here, but it usually gets into some deeper stuff. And that's all that the shadow stuff down into the master realm,
It makes me wonder if complaining is kind of like the trail or the scent of all those deeper things. And if you kind of allow yourself to follow that scent or to move down there instead of it being this flabby on the surface, you actually get to the origin of whatever. I don't know why I came up with smell, but it's wherever that smell is coming from,
Yeah, I like that. And I noticed that we're not allowed to complain. If we complain to someone, they're going to go to fix it.
Right.
Or cheer up, right? And so you never actually get down to that. You can't go to that scented area because people that keep steering you away. No, be in the nice place. Be who you're not.
What I notice is with my clients, they'll start to complain and they'll be like, and then they'll stop themselves. And I want to be like, no, this is what we're here for. Let's have it. Let's get messy. What's going on,
Yeah.
No. But it's there's gold in our hills. Go there.
Yeah. In the next book, The Art of Empathy, well, it's not next now, but I wrote it in 2013. I did conscious complaining with a partner where you get to do it for 3 minutes with a partner whose job is to just listen and make it okay. No stopping, no advice, no jollying, just like, yeah, uh-huh. Like just be with you while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then you switch places, and then you get to do it for 3 minutes and they listen to you. It's so awesome.
That sounds amazing. It's like what you like. I feel like this is what you go to your best friends for, to be like, look, I just need to vomit. And you want them to be like, yeah, you're right. You go, just,
Yeah.
and it
Who
feels really
wouldn't?
good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So that's a fun one.
It's the synergy of connection, right? Connection gives us all these safeguards and allows us to like be, it does something to our beings as human beings. Connection is super powerful. And then if you can get somebody to do that with you, which is like, that's a pretty cool friend or whoever you can get to do that with you.
That's why I made it that you trade.
Right.
So it's not you just going and
Right.
dumping on someone.
Yeah.
Right. It's reciprocal, right?
Yeah. It's reciprocal. We both get to do it.
Like I'm the dumper and you're the dumpy all the time, which, it doesn't end up being good.
Yeah. I have I license people in my work in our licensee community. So we have a Facebook page, and it'll be, does anyone have time for conscious complaining? Right? And then we'll like jump on a Zoom. Okay. It's great because you cannot believe what I just dealt with. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that more. I'm gonna be like conscious complaining corner. Let's go. That's awesome. I really like that. I feel like it's so needed actually, because it's like it's there, right? Might as well be honest about it, because it's like I feel like when we're in this place of ignoring or just trying to stuff down or repress or suppress, like whatever, it's like we enter into a place of emotional dishonesty, and from there we have no power if we can't be really honest about how we feel. It's like how do you even navigate? It's like not wanting to listen to your navigation system, but it's like telling you exactly where to go. And it's
Yeah. But I mean, we've all known people who just complain endlessly. They never get anywhere, and that's why it's a 3-minute practice. It's like, now you're done, now go listen to someone else. But what I find is when you can create it in a kind of a sacred space of practice, people do get where they need to go. Something about making it conscious and making it reciprocal can stop that kind of endless complaining that some people can do.
So like people talk about complaining as being this like wounded feminine, where it's just like I'm complaining about stuff and like nothing's ever changing, nothing's ever happening, because there's like it's not paired with any action or any sort of direction. It's just kind of like this, it's kind of cyclical, like it just keeps happening.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder what keeps it on the surface, because like what you're saying is like there's something about this consciousness of the container and the parameters, like you're adding like those spatial and like those what's the word, but time boundaries and like space boundaries with it, that somehow allows that deeper thing to happen instead of it just sort of hanging out, I guess, like kind of in the ethers. Just
it's kind of ritualized, so it has more of a ritual framework.
Right. I'm like really interested, like for some reason lately I'm like really fascinated by complaining, and I'm like, there's something here that's really juicy. So I'm just like, anyway, I was loving that. I was like, yeah, I love this is great.
When I go into workplaces, it's the people who complain that I like to hang out with, because they know what's going on. The happy ones are like, this is our lovely pool table and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, can we talk to somebody else, because you give me nothing.
Right. It's so interesting because so many nuggets in this book. Like for everyone listening, like you need to I don't say need to, I would invite you, I would highly encourage you to read Karla's books, but this book, honestly, it's such an amazing guide that I think everyone should like pick up and learn, because it's like we haven't had any lessons or any real guidance on like emotions, and I think you do an amazing job of like really talking about that. And I think
And on June 27th, the new version.
Yes. Oh,
that she has in her hot little hands there.
show us.
Hot
Yes,
off the
show us.
presses.
Yes. This gorgeous
Updated.
book.
New chapters, revisions. Fantastic. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm
It
excited
is. I'm so glad.
to get the
How
book.
much work does it take to revise a book?
Well, it takes all the years when you're like, oh man, I wish I had said that differently.
Right.
Right. So it's like from the beginning. And then I think this took me a couple of months, 3 or 4 months to revise. And a lot of it was trying not to make it longer, but because people whine about it. I'm like, you know what? Find a conscious complaining partner.
Could you make it,
But basically, you can go and you can just read one emotion.
Right. Have you been a writer for your whole life?
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah.
And
Well,
when
you've written like how many books? Because I looked and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of books here. And there was also one that I was really interested in on aura and chakras.
Oh yeah, that was my first career.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. If you would like to.
I ended that career.
Wow.
I ended my whole public career in 2003. I pulled everything that I controlled out of print and I went back to school because I had realized that I was one of the first empaths. Don't blame me for what has happened with the empath community. I swear to God, these people are getting on my last nerve, okay? I did not create this. But I began to understand because I had grown up in the sort of the new age spiritual world. And in that world, empath was a psychic. But when I started, empath was the trash garbage psychic. They were considered like the worst of the worst because they were with emotions. And in the new age, emotions were hated at that time. So a part of my work was to bring emotional psychics out of the trash heap, and so I did that. I wish I hadn't, but
well, everything kind of pendulates, right? Like it sort of swings.
Yeah, I wish I had. But I began to realize, one, that the New Age was a very, very, very unsafe place. It's a wild west. There's no checks and balances whatsoever, and a lot of trauma survivors were following me into the New Age, and then they were just being preyed upon.
Yeah.
I also began to realize that empathy is not a psychic skill at all. It is human. Horses have it, dogs have it, cats have it. People say cats aren't empathic, but they're just like they choose who to be empathic with. They have standards. Dogs are like, I love everyone. Cats are like, you need to show me why I care about you. But yeah, I began to see that the world that I was in was unethical and unsafe, and so I shut down everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would like to hear more about that because I have, in my own experience of some of my earlier stuff that I did too. Like I kind of started to go into the new age thing. And then what I realized is it wasn't really tethered, like it was all up here, and a lot of that could be like a dissociative, like trauma response. So it was like so much unconsciousness, like masquerading as enlightenment, which is kind of a scary thing. So it's like, in a way, people unwittingly victimizing others and being victimized, right? Because it's just that unconscious kind of swimmy ethereal thing without any grounding to it, without that like integrity, without processes, without structure, without discernment, I guess would be the word.
Yeah.
So but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that because I feel like I'm like playing with stuff in my mind, so I don't know how to finish the question, but
I don't know how to finish the question. This will be like a Monty Python skit, and just someone's going to bring a rubber chicken in. Boom, the skit is ended. I mean, I was there. I was drawn to the New Age because I had grown up there in the yoga culture and all that stuff, aura and chakra culture, and I saw how much despair there was underneath all the
Hmm.
airy fairy stuff, and
Right.
I was trying to help. I was trying to bring the emotions in. I was trying to bring body and grounding, safety, clarity, ethics, and I couldn't. I couldn't. It was too big for one person to be.
Tall order.
Yeah. And I just realized, no, if people are following me in here, I'm making them unsafe. I'm doing harm to people by staying here and doing this whole career. So I just ended everything. It was a terrifying thing. And I joked that I would have had to cheer up to be merely suicidally depressed, and I would have had to calm down to be merely homicidally enraged. So I was like, ah. Yeah. And then I went back to school and I decided I was going to write about my transition. Uh, and I sent it to Sounds True, who had done most of my books. And I said, I'm going to write about this. And, there's a clause in my contract that says I can't do anything to destabilize the sales of, whatever books and so forth. And so I was trying to be really ethical about it. And they said, oh, whatever. We want you to rewrite a book. We want you to rewrite, it was called Emotional Genius at that time. We want you to rewrite Emotional Genius from what you understand now. And I went, okay. So so language of emotions was me coming out after having gone to school and kind of understood what happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are second acts in American life. You just have to end your first act. That's the trick.
Somebody gave me a Barbara Y. Martin book the other day. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Wait, I don't know this.
Barbara
Yeah.
Y. Martin. She's like I think that she is literally 99 years old, but she does write a lot about, it's mostly just energy stuff, so it's all about our aura, right? And when I think about that, a lot of that stuff, it's like, yes, there are energies and dimensions and what we sit in as like a spiritual species and what our manifestation is, But I think about, well, for better or for worse, we are humans here now, right? And we should ground our knowing in our brightest light of being, which is, our body and our all these, great messages that we get here, so that like there is a bigger, grander story. You can go out to the universe and have all these experiences and stuff. But like, well, if you want to make it down here on the old planet, we probably should pay attention to what's happening here,
Yeah, how would that be?
Who knows?
Yeah, how would that be?
Let's give it a shot.
I'm comfy.
I was just laughing because I remember my friends were trying to learn how to do telekinesis. They were trying to move a pen on a table, and they're all really trying really hard. And I just walked over and I picked up the pen and I go, boom, done. Because I have an arm, you idiot.
They gave us arms.
Man, this is so funny because, like, for some reason, have you ever heard of, are you familiar with Richard Rudd's work, like some of the gene key stuff? So, oh gosh, how do I explain this now that I brought it up? So there's a whole system. It's called human design. The author was, I think, a Canadian guy who was like had some kind of publication company. Basically, he downloads a system, which is like the chakra system, the Kabbalah, Tree of Life, like all the horoscopes and astrology, like everything together into a system. And it's based on like your birthday and your chart and all these things. And I was like, this is fun. It's cute. Who doesn't love a little horoscope to try to relate something, I'm like, it's fun, right? It's fun. But it is interesting. The more that I would look at it with friends, I'd be like, this is kind of creepy. Like it's almost like eerily spot on in certain ways. And so the more digging I did, like looking into like Stan Groff and the Way of the Psychonaut, and I'm very fascinated by like some of his work as well. there have been people talking about the universe as like kind of being the spiral, and how there's a reason why energetic imprints. So it's like a whole thing, which may be out of the scope of what you really want to talk about. But what I do like about Gene Keys, it's kind of an offshoot of human design. It's like going further into different shadow aspects, different gifts, and then different ways of like transmuting those shadows. So it is a book of like contemplation. And one of the themes that was kind of coming up for me is I feel like I noticed a tendency towards like magical thinking, or wanting there to be some kind of magic to transmute things or rescue me from problems that I don't want to solve. So I just want to be like, okay, if I sit here long enough and I just believe that this is going to get better, that it'll just get better, you know? And I'm like, that's not healthy. Why am I doing that? And I'm sure there's a really good reason for it. But for some reason, this just kind of popped up into my brain today, where I was like, there's something here with like delusion, magical thinking. For some reason, it just like surfaced to like the top of my brain. And for whatever reason, we were just talking about that. It made me think about it. And
Yeah, it sounds like escapism.
yeah, like some kind of
Is that an emotion of escapism or not wanting to deal with something?
I think it's a form of distraction, displacement,
Yeah.
displacing yourself away from the situation.
right. It feels like a form of like victimization, where it's like, I can't do this thing myself, so I need to be rescued by something else, and like taking myself out of the equation, so then I can be this like benefactor of some mystical gift. And in a way, it's like sometimes I wonder if those patterns can come from having some like early childhood trauma, like complex trauma, and then there being certain myths like woven into our story, like things as seductive as like Santa Claus, you know, like the Easter Bunny, and things which are like so nice. They feel so good to think about and feel into. But it's like, if perhaps a part of my psyche, or I have a part that's gotten trapped there, that believed that like good things can come from like mystical happenings where I'm not involved in it, then it's sort of like I'm looking for these mystical happenings without understanding the process of actually what I'm doing, or what the system is, or how things actually work, as opposed to doing the things and like co-creating, you know. So it was just something I was thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I was going to say earlier, there were so many nuggets in your book, and one of these other things that you said that I was just like, this is so profound and well said, that projection, I don't remember the exact wording, but I want to say it's like sloppy boundaries in a way. It's like putting our, you know, just like putting our stuff over there and being like, it's them, it's them. And it really made me just like think more about so I usually am like, when I notice any kind of strong dislike come up in me with other people, I'm like, oh, something's happening here, right? And I get really interested. But it just kind of allowed me, however the wording was, just to kind of look at it and be like, huh, that's interesting. What do I not want to hold in myself? Like, what do I not want to take responsibility for? And I was thinking about this because of the conscious complaining. And there was this person. So I generally do like most people. I find that I am kind of like a puppy. Like, I'm like, I like you, we're friends, yay, right? But then once in a while, I'll come across a person where I, you know, believe I have some shadow aspects. I'm just like hiding those little Easter eggs over there. And I'm like, I don't like you. Like, I don't like you. And some of it was just around this one person in particular that I felt like was so negative and just criticizing everyone all the time. And I'm like, say something positive, like say something nice, right? But it's interesting because like we need both aspects of like some form of constructive criticism. Like we need honesty, and not just like blowing smoke up people's asses. Not that that's the intention when we're complimenting, but there's like light shadows or there's light aspects and shadow aspects of projection, right? And what I had realized later, because I was like, what is this? Like, what is this here? And I realized later that I was deeply critical towards myself. And I didn't like seeing someone else do that to other people. I really felt the need to protect them and be like, I don't trust you because you're talking shit about these people and they deserve to be seen with kindness and compassion. Well, at the same time, I have a part over here that is talking mad shit to me, other parts, and I'm getting highly upset about it. But it's almost like I don't have that anger when it's inside. It's almost like it's the opposite, where I feel like I collapse into sadness and powerlessness.
You know, Carl Jung, who did the work on shadow and projection, said that projection isn't a bad thing, that sometimes we can only learn through projection. He also said, without projection, we would never leave our parents' house because we have to put parts of ourselves out before we go. So it could be, when I see people like that who remind me of something that's like screwed up in me, I'm like, you're my friend. You're my shadow friend. You came here for a reason. You were drawn like a magnet to my problem.
It's so interesting though, because I could feel like a part of me would prefer to hold those people away from me and to find disgust with them. And so that the other thing that I've been interested in is looking at the emotion of disgust because of some of the themes of like parentification and enmeshment and like emotional incest. Because it's like having trauma or these like wounds, but having no context or way to explain what happened or why I feel this level of like shame or disgust around kind of being taken from emotionally or dumped on emotionally. And so do you have any like insights around, and maybe I didn't get to finish the whole book. I tried. But, and I will, but insights around like transmuting disgust and just ways of working with it. Cause I feel like that one's interesting to me too.
Yeah, disgust is a, a form of hatred. And so it's shadow work. It's shadow work. And I was trying to think, do I have it in there? I have something called, I mean, this is a practice that we do, something called a shadow walk, which is finding a problem that you yourself cannot figure out. You can't figure it out. It's not working. You can't. And what I do is I find someone I particularly hate or particularly adore, because both are shadow, right? And I go for a walk with them and I ask them what to do. And they always know things I don't know, right? Because they're in my shadow. And I don't have the actual person. I'm doing this imaginally, right? But I love doing shadow walks. I did one back in the day with, who was Bush's vice president? Cheney, super evil, right? And, I walked with him and he gave me some of the best advice ever. And, walking with people I can't stand, I was like, you're going to have some really good information for me.
Cool idea.
It's
So
very
how does that kind of look when you're doing that in your imagination? It's like going on a walk and kind of bringing
if you have a bunch of energy and emotions about somebody, you're gonna like in a problem you can't solve. They're now walking next to you and be like, hey, what do you got here, right?
like kind of like that, I guess.
And it's really funny, because if you, was it John Bradshaw said resentment is the strongest attachment, stronger than love, right? So if you're in hatred and disgust with someone, that's a relationship, right? That's a strong relationship. And so So your whole psyche knows what's going on. And
Right.
for me, the walk is kind of a way to play with that.
John Bradshaw is really brilliant. So brilliant. It is interesting, right? It's like maybe disgust is something that feels like it gives us power to like
Yeah.
protest, you know,
Yeah.
when otherwise it's like maybe we wouldn't have the power to like, I don't know, I view it being a complicated relationship, disgust, because it's like intense love, intense hatred, almost like an ability to like extricate ourselves, you know, from the situation where it's like my existence is so tied to yours and I
Yeah.
love you, but I'm so deeply hurt, but I'm so this, but you know what I mean? And it's like
Yeah.
perhaps the epitome of some form of victimization, and
Yeah.
feeling completely powerless.
Yeah, because it's in the area of anger, it's about boundaries. So hatred would mean your boundaries are just blown apart,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They're just blown apart. Like we see with people who are, really strongly homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably gay. You know what I mean? You're probably gay, right? So just be who you are, because there's no way you're going to be this drawn towards something unless there's something unfinished inside you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what about those people that are just like, no, it's not true. I hate it. And it's like,
Yeah, well, knock yourself out, man. You just believe what you believe.
right. So it's just kind of interesting because I don't know, it like in coaching, obviously, like I get into topics of like victimization with clients at different points, and it just depends on what kind of transference or whatever's happening there. And it's like I can make the invitation and say, well, this is what I see happening. I think there's some victimization here. Like maybe you've stepped into the drama triangle or there's some dysregulation, whatever. But once that happens, I'm kind of like, I can't help you when you're there. Like I can invite you back into like a coaching space. I mean, I can hold space for you here and validate you while you're in this victimization place. It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with being there. But I think there's a part of me that wants to be like, here, take my hand, like come out of there, you know, kind of to grab them and be like, let's go this way. But it's like, you can't always, you can't make someone step out of it, right? And it's kind of like,
No, and if it's an initiation, you can't do it for them. That's another rule of initiation.
Mm.
right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But you can stay on the outside and witness.
Right. Yeah.
Karla, would you talk with us a little bit about DEI and Empath Academy? Like, how did you make that?
Well, DEI is dynamic emotional integration, and we did it back in 2015 when DEI wasn't diversity,
Right.
equity,
Equity and
and inclusion.
inclusion.
It wasn't that yet. It wasn't DEI yet, so it confuses people.
Right.
But dynamic emotional integration is my applied work, and so many people wanted to work with me, but I am only one person.
Right.
So I wanted to, and then a number of people wanted to train with me, and I didn't have a training program. So I wanted to create it online because people were coming from all over the world, and travel is not green and it's not inexpensive.
Right.
So I built Empathy Academy to teach the DEI licensing, and then as people got licensed, they wanted to teach online courses. So Empathy Academy became a place to take courses in this work and then hang out with people who understand it. So it's been really fun. It's sort of just kept growing, yeah, I think we've got people in 15 countries now who are licensed.
Right. I was going through that. I had a session with, I can't remember her name, and her email is all gone now. God dang it. But it was cool. And I kind of perused the classes and was like, this is very nice and like priced pretty nicely. It's very inexpensive, It was like what I saw was just like, this is a mature environment. These people have been here for a while doing this and working on this and creating
Yeah.
that. So I could kind of see that. So I was just like, tip of
Yeah.
the hat to you, ma'am, about like a pretty cool thing that you made.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very empathic the way that it happened, because I was like, oh, you need this? Okay, I'll build this. Oh, you want that? Okay, we'll do that now too. All right, now let's do this. It's like sort of the opposite of a business plan.
Yeah.
It's like I'm responding to the people instead of saying, here's what we're gonna have.
So what's next on your empathic creative horizon? What you got? Any big projects here are coming down the pipeline?
I've got 2 books that I really want to do, but I may need to revise Art of Empathy because it's very old stuff in there. And that was from 2013. But I've done work with part of my experience in the New Age was I grew up in a cult. I had a cult experience, and when I went into school, one of my professors said, you have to talk to Janja Lalich, who was a professor in my school at Chico. And I was like, Janja Lalich, I'll talk to her just for the name. Come on. And she's like an internationally renowned cult scholar. And my other professor had heard me tell my story, and he didn't say this is a cult, but he said, you need to go talk to Janja. So I told Janja my story. She's like, that was a cult. And I was like, what? What's a cult then? What's really what? And so I learned about cults, and she and I did some papers together, and we did a book together. So now I'm a cult scholar.
Wow.
And I wanted to write a book called, right now in my head, it's called Off Ramp. We see people in a lot of extreme cultic environments right now, especially politically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And where a lot of families have been like, if you're a Trump supporter, if you're not, we will never speak again.
Right.
I understand this need to protect ourselves, but it's exactly what you shouldn't do if someone is in a cultic environment. The only way to get out is someone on the outside has to trust you and be willing to speak to you, and someone who's going to keep you connected to the outside world outside of this cult. And I wanted to talk to people who have been able to get out. I got out of a cult. I got out of my New Age career, and to talk about what were the conditions that allowed you to leave the cult or that career or that political party. What was it? And I'm calling it Off Ramp because so many people don't know that one of the most important things is you have to treat the person as if they're intelligent and worthy of respect. Because a lot of people say, you are so stupid. How could you buy that ridiculous thing?
Right, not helpful.
And if anybody yells at me about what I believe, I can shut them off like,
goodbye.
Boom, goodbye. But if someone shows that they care about me and they're making good points,
Right.
and they're engaging my intelligence, I mean, we can't save everybody, right? Cults are very powerful, but to understand what an off ramp looks like from a bunch of people, and I want to interview. I'm seeing her name. She's the granddaughter of the Westboro Baptist Church, that horrifying church that
down in Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like their social media person, and people on Twitter who understood religion started engaging with her, and she became able to leave. I want to talk to the son of the white supremacist party in the United States. What's his name? Derek Black. He was supposed to take over white supremacism, and he met someone who was Jewish in college, and they began to talk, and he began to see that he had to leave, right? So I did this in my career. I wanted to be around more people who had done this, because I think a lot of people say, well, if my person is in QAnon, they're gone forever. I've lost them forever, and I don't even care because they're awful.
Right.
And that's not how that works. It's very, very hard to stay connected to someone who's in a terrifying social environment that is controlling, and the beliefs are very damaging.
Right.
But it's so important if you can. So it was like, here's what you do. Here's the support you need. Here's how it happened. Here's people who actually did it. This is what it looks like. This is the offering.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that one.
That's
I think it's a really juicy and relevant topic. But it's interesting. It's like, but that person kind of has to be open to understanding that they are in a cult or in something, right? Is that kind of like,
I think that comes later, because
Yeah.
a lot of places, if you say this sounds like a cult, that's a word that the cult has used to say we are not a cult. My cult said we're not a cult.
right.
So if someone said, well, it sounds like a cult, then I would be like, oh, you're one of those people. Right? It's a very closed system, and they protect their people from waking up and leaving, right? It's really important to keep people controlled. And so you really have to be, like I call it, stealth empath. You have to use stealth empathy to figure out, because they're being abused, right? Right? The people are being abused and manipulated. And so going in, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever worked with, this is not a great analogy, but it sort of is. If you ever worked with wounded animals, you don't go up to them and go, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm chill, you're safe here, you can go over there, I don't need to pet you.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. These people are being injured every day.
But think about that trust that's built on human connection, right? And when you can actually form genuine human connection, that's when the type of information then later on can be passed to a person, right? But
they have to trust you.
Right. You have to trust, right?
Yeah. And you can't trust a person who's like, you're in a cult and also you're stupid.
Right.
Bye.
But that seems like, at least I see it a lot, that is the general message that's getting pumped out everywhere. And it's just like, God, this is all noise. That's so not helpful to anybody or anything, and we're so much more connected. It's like, what I would like to do is have everybody take a space shuttle ride, like up over the moon, to be like, this is just a tiny little ball, right? We're out here in the middle of fucking nowhere. We need each other. And we have all these special abilities built in for us to connect if we just crack open our hearts a little bit, have a little bit of patience, a little bit of empathy. It's like this magical thing happens. You start to feel the other person. And
You know what? This is really interesting to me because with the amount of political polarity that we have going on, it's almost like both sides are literally like, you're in a cult and you're brainwashed. And you're like, no, you're in a cult and you're brainwashed. So then it's like, I think there's a lot of, boy crying cult or whatever you would say. So it's
this is
kind of
a planetary initiation. We're about to have, we're going to kill
Right.
everybody, right?
Well,
And
it's like,
we're gonna
how do
have to
we
go to the next level.
discern? And of course, there's much research and, it's like finding out what is abuse and how is this happening and all that. I think it's a really juicy topic, but I also think it is both a term that is probably thrown around too much in a way that isn't correct. And then also maybe not thrown out enough. You know what I mean? Almost like the term gaslighting, where someone's like, you're gaslighting me. It's like, actually, I'm not, but how do I argue with you that I'm not? I'm presenting you with a different perspective. And it's like, I could show you the definition of gaslighting. I'm not.
I was like, do you want to go see the movie with me and let's talk about it?
Right. But it's like, but when someone throws out that word, it's almost like, what is that thing when you're losing a fight on the internet?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Hitlering or something.
Yeah. You're Hitler. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like, well, game over.
Hitler's here. Everything's done.
Everything's done. But it's like,
I've got to send you something. It's called the Rainbow Cake. What was it? The Rainbow Cake Disaster or something like that. It's an Australian magazine, and someone was talking about making a rainbow cake with a 5 in the middle for their child. And someone asked, how long do you freeze the 5? And they said, till it's frozen. That was how it started. And then the whole comment thing exploded into the kinds of, but it is killing me. So this guy's moderating the rainbow cake disaster in the comments section. I love it so much. I'll send it to you. Oh, it is. Sometimes I just want to put that on every Facebook and comment place.
Right.
Rainbow cake.
I really look forward to seeing that. I think I do love a good comment section. I'll just go back and forth and be like, watching people like, you're dumb, no, you're dumb, no, you're brainwashed. Well, how do you believe that? And they're like, this is
Hitler.
Hitler.
Game and match.
Drop this in here, right here.
Yeah, or you're gaslighting me, or you're a sociopath. You're drinking a Kool-Aid. It's like you're either a cult, you're gaslighting, you're Hitler.
And I'm triggered.
Yeah. You're not enlightened. You're woke. No, I'm awake. I have woken up, but you are woke, and that's not really being enlightened. And it's like, whoa, what is happening?
Oh, the level of discourse. It is something to be proud of.
We have turds, and we're just slapping different labels on them, saying it's something other. It's still not chocolate. I'm clear. It's not chocolate.
Karla, I wanted to thank you very much for your time and for coming on with us and shooting the breeze.
Hitler.
You have a great sense of humor, and your audiobook narration is like, you have a great voice for it. So I very much enjoyed listening to that.
I'm a connoisseur of the recorded spoken word, and yours was like,
thank you very much.
Top notch. So keep up, kid.
Can I ask one
this
more
may
question?
turn into something for you.
You could have a career.
You could have a real career in this, kid. It'd be great. The last question is, in your bio, you mentioned healthy empathy. And I've been wanting to ask more about your take on that. And I think it kind of fits into what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, right now in the empath community, there's this idea that empaths are, first of all, every single living being is an empath, okay? You can't not be, because it's a function of being alive. It's a function of engaging. Empathy isn't something special and magic. You can be a hyper empath, which means you are sort of over the top. But usually what it means is you don't have very good boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. So you would tend to you would tend to pick up a lot from others, sort of lose where you are. So healthy empathy is empathy with boundaries, and to understand, this is my experience, that's your experience. I can support you. I can cross over if I want to, but I have a home space. And so for a lot of people who have sort of the empath title, what I would call them is untrained hyper empaths. They haven't got their skills under them yet. So they're suffering a lot.
Right.
And
so almost like a lack of proper intellectual, emotional boundaries, boundaries not really happening. So it's like everything that's happening, they're so impacted and affected by it. And then there's no internal guidance or no system of being able to know what's theirs or what someone else's is. It's just all this chaos.
Yeah, and burnout's really common, right? And so in my work, I would like to create what I call empathic badassery, which is well-boundaried, grounded, functional, emotionally aware, empathic people who can go out and make some changes in this goddamn world.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're sitting around going, I'm so sensitive, I can't, that blue is too dark for me. I'm like, come on. We got some people to work with, okay? There's homeless folks right outside your door. Make them a sandwich, for God's sake.
I used to have hyper empath sensitivities when I went to IKEA. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed.
Just go have those meatballs. That's a part of the experience.
So good with the lingonberry jelly or whatever that is.
I didn't get any meatballs when I went there.
What?
I went there. She
and
took
you
me
didn't
there.
go.
Wow.
You can't. not have the
I
meatballs?
don't know. Oh, you know why, Nick? Because they have gluten in them. I was protecting you.
Thank you.
I know.
I feel robbed still.
Yeah, before we close out, is there anything else you wanted to share? Let's see, well, we're gonna drop the links below. And I'll be sharing this to my Instagram page. We're gonna put it on the So Emotional podcast. But we'll have links for all your stuff coming up. And the link for a new edition of your book, which is really exciting.
Thank you.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So good. Yeah, anything else before we?
I would say we've been taught that emotions are problems. But in fact, emotions are the aspects of intelligence and wisdom and ingenuity that come forward to help us deal with problems. So if we learn their language, we can change almost anything in our lives and eventually in the world. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
I love it. Thank you so much, Karla.
Blowing my mind over here.
Blow my mind.
Immense pleasure. Yeah, this is awesome.
All right. I think that's going to do it. So Emotional 33, Karla McLaren. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks, guys. See you next time.